Hello, everybody. It's very good to meet you. Unfortunately, I can't work out how to turn my camera on, so something's gone wrong with my computer today. So I must apologise for that. But you will be looking at slides soon, so you won't be looking at me anyway. But it seems from the people who've registered for this webinar that lots of people in this webinar do. So I'm just going to share my slides. Lots of people in this group do research, and there's lots of this, but we don't know each other. So it would be great if you haven't already, if you could put in the chat just a little bit about what you do, your area of research, for example, and also the biggest challenges that you see for researchers in your research area or your country. So that would be really nice for getting to know each other and for finding out a bit more about the kind of challenges that we all face. Hopefully you can all see my slides here. I'll just move that over to one side. So some of the common issues that we see at INASP that are challenges, I've put on the screen here. Access to journals and books to find past research, not knowing of good journals published in your country, challenges picking a journal you can trust, lack of awareness of how to write a research paper, challenges with writing in academic English, difficulties paying to publish where that's needed, not feeling you're taken seriously by researchers outside your country, lack of data analysis and statistical skills, and difficulties finding other researchers to work with. So as a starting point for this webinar, we thought it would be interesting to find out whether these are the kind of challenges that you see. I mean, people will have put things in the chat already, but we're also going to have a little poll. Domitiana, are you able to share the poll now?
Yeah,
so
just one moment.
So these issues that I've put on the screen at the moment, if you could pick 3 of your top challenges, so the biggest challenges that you see, if you could just pick 3 of the things that I've said, or if none of these seem to fit with what you think, put some other ones in the chat. It would be really interesting to find out if there are different issues and other issues that maybe we haven't talked about. Just give a few moments for this. Keep an eye on how many people have voted at the moment. I think you can probably all see on the screen kind of an interesting spread through all of the different topics at the moment. Just give everybody a few more moments to respond. So I can't actually, unfortunately, as I'm showing my screen, I can't actually see the chat, but later on I will be able to take a look at some of the things in the chat. And also to say that we will be having a good time of questions at the end of this webinar. This is actually the second time we've done this webinar, and the first time we did it, we had a good 15 minutes at the end, which was a good time for talking about all sorts of issues that came up during the session. So I think we'll close the poll in maybe 10 seconds or something. If you still want to vote, please please do go ahead. It's looking at the moment like difficulties in paying to publish is a big theme, lack of data analysis and statistical skills, challenges picking a journal you can trust, writing in academic English. So if we could, as we finish up voting here, these kind of challenges are the kind of challenges that INASP aims to reduce. So what's going to happen in this webinar? Domitiana, can we close the poll now? Do you think? Thank you very much. So take that off the screen now. So what we're going to talk about in this webinar, I'm going to give a quick overview of INASP for those of you who don't know about INASP, and then my colleague Andy Nobes is going to share with you, for a lot of the presentation, he's going to be sharing with you about the AuthorAID project, which we run, which is supporting particularly early career researchers with the publication process, but not just early career researchers. And Andy will explain some more about this. And I will just then tell you briefly about some other courses and tutorials that are available through INASP, and also talk a little bit about the Journals Online project. People mentioned about difficulties finding a journal to publish, so I'll also quickly mention a little bit about the Think, Check, Submit initiative. And then, as I said, there will be plenty of time for questions at the end. So all through this presentation, if there are things that you would like to ask, if there are things you want to discuss about what's being talked about, please do put them in the chat, and we will try and pick up on as many as possible of these at the end of the session. So very little bit about INASP. INASP's been around since the early 90s. We have a vision of research and knowledge at the heart of development, which, and our full name is International Network for Advancing Science and Policy. So that fits with this theme. Our mission is to support individuals and institutions to produce, share, and use research and knowledge to transform lives. So what this means in practice, we are involved in supporting research capacity. So that is supporting the process of communicating research, helping researchers to learn about how to navigate the journal publishing process, to understand how to structure journals, articles, and to find appropriate journals to write in, for example. Also supporting journals in countries outside of the countries that have the really big budget, large commercial publishers, so that the whole global sphere of good research journals is recognized and supported. We also work at the connection between the research and evidence and policy, so with governments and policy makers about how to use research effectively, how to understand and support it, and also sort of further down before people get to the research stage, working with higher education and learning, supporting the use of critical thinking skills in university teaching and learning, so that graduates, when they leave university or go on to further research and further studies, are better equipped for the kind of challenges they need to support. And understanding all these, we also work in understanding and supporting the impact of research. So I'm now going to hand over to Andy, who is going to speak to you about AuthorAID, which is a project of INASP working specifically to support researchers. Andy, over to you. And if you could just let me know when you'd like me to change slides, that would be great.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Siân, for the introductions. My name is Andy Nobes, and I run the AuthorAID project that Siân has just introduced. So AuthorAID is a project that's been going for, I think, just over 11 years. And we have a community of around 20,000 researchers, various different levels of experience from all over the world, but we're focusing on researchers in the global south, in lower middle income countries. And we do a number of different things. We support researchers through an online mentoring system, through a discussion forum, through a group of online courses that we run, through journal clubs, through free resources, and generally just being part of a larger global community of researchers with the same kinds of challenges. So, okay, let's go to the next slide. If it moves, okay, great. Okay, I guess I've already said most of this already, but you can find out more about us on the AuthorAID website, www.authораid.info. Probably the most common question that we're asked at the end of these presentations is, how much does this cost, or is this free? So I thought I would actually tweak this slide before we went on, just to add the word free in here, because the online courses that we run, which are in research writing and proposal writing, are free at the point of use. So as a researcher, you can join the course at no cost. And there's no cost for certificates or anything like that. So it's we run MOOCs, massive online open courses, which are open to everybody to join and complete. We also have an online mentoring system. We have about 600 or 700 mentors, experienced researchers from all over the world who sign up on our website to help less experienced researchers and scientists. And this is also free. We also have a section on the website which is full of free resources and training materials which you can use and adapt and share. So next slide. So yeah, just to show that there's also a section within AuthorAID where you can look for other researchers, not just to mentor you or look to mentor, but also to look to collaborate with. Many people have joined our website, joined our community as young researchers and have gone on to be mentors and help other researchers and scientists from all over the world. Next slide. This is a map from one of our online courses, just to show what the global distribution can sometimes be on our MOOCs. So it really is truly global. With this particular course, I think maybe from a couple of years ago, it shows that there was a lot of interaction from Southern Africa, from South Asia, but generally speaking, from all over the world. So we've trained over 20,000 researchers since 2015 using these online courses, and I'll mention in just a moment what's actually included in those online courses. And they're designed for people who are based in low bandwidth or places which have a weak internet connection. So they're not full of large videos or lectures or anything like that. They're designed to be able to be accessed from anywhere in the world, and you can go through the course, complete it without having to have access to really strong internet broadband. Actually, at this point, would we be able to bring up the other poll question? Because I think this might be a good way of introducing the next section. If we're able to. Is there another poll question in the back that we can pop up on the screen? There we go, wonderful, okay, great. Now, this is a question that we often asked on the online course. This might give you a flavor of the kind of things that we discuss. So when you're writing your research paper, say you have your research idea and you've collected some data, at what point do you start thinking about the journal that you want to submit your research to? Do you think about this before writing? Do you start looking for a journal during the writing process? Or is this something that you should be starting to do once you have written the paper? So if you can vote in this poll, tell me what you think is the best time to start looking for a journal where you want to put this paper. Just give you a few more seconds, or perhaps 30 seconds to vote. I can see that, well, I won't say what the most popular choice is yet, But this is kind of a key question really for how we think about research and how we think about how the research is shared and how it becomes part of the broader global literature. I can see 55 people have voted so far. 57. So I get to give a few more seconds. Okay, it looks like we've got all the votes we're going to get. 58, okay, we'll stop at 58. So if we could stop the poll now. But we can see from this poll that 80% of people have gone for the before writing option. And I think this is usually what we'd say is the recommended option. So we always recommend you to start thinking about your target journal before you actually start writing. In fact, some would say before you actually start collecting data at the very beginning. One of the main reasons for this is that it can really depend on what journal you're looking to publish your research in. That will affect what kind of writing style it would. Each journal may have its own writing style, its own length, its own recommendations. It may have particular ethical requirements or data requirements. And a lot of the problems that come up when we have these discussions in the online course, the answer to the question is, it really does depend on the particular journal. And you really do need to read a section of the journal called the Instructions for Authors. And this is something that you'll need to refer to before you start writing, whilst you're writing, and once you've written the paper. So we would say before writing as the answer to this question, although we are aware that in many cases, early career researchers may have already written the paper and they come to the stage where they go to submit to a journal and realize that it doesn't quite fit with that particular journal. So we recommend looking for the journal right at the very beginning, as early as possible. Okay, so if we can shut that down and perhaps move to the next slide, please, Siân. Okay, fantastic. Right, so this is looking at what the contents are of one of our research writing online courses. Just to take you through some of the things that we explore, starting with understanding previous research. So one of the important aspects that we cover is how to actually access research papers in the first place. And we're aware that this is a particularly hot topic in this particular webinar because we're collaborating here with Research for Life. And we know that this is an issue. This is actually accessing research papers can be a major problem for young and even experienced researchers. And so as well as Research for Life, we look at other ways that you can access research papers, such as using the unpaywall button, using open access journals and open access repositories. On top of this, it can also be important looking at the literature to formulate your own research question, finding the gap in the research where you think that your research can go. And then we move on to the ethics of research, and there are two components to this. One of them is research ethics itself, such as informed consent and ethics committees, the actual ethics of doing the research, and then the ethics of publishing your research. And that's when we start talking about things like authorship and plagiarism. And these are always really important topics to understand before you actually write your research paper. Then we go on to preparing to write your research paper. And as I've said, identifying the target journal in advance can really help you as you write your research. When you're writing the research paper itself, there are several things you need to think about in terms of structuring the research paper. And quite often, some of you may be familiar with the IMRAD structure, which is something we learn about on the course. And it really can depend on the journal as to how you structure your research paper. Is it a standard hourglass figure, or in the social sciences, perhaps is a slightly different structure. So it's important to understand what the journal expects and the structure of your paper. And then finally, another really important component of research writing, actually how to navigate peer review. This is a really important aspect of how you actually get your research published. Shall we move to the next slide, Siân? Okay, this is just a comment from somebody who's done one of our online courses, saying that it is a really good course for early career researchers. We tried to make the course as broad and for all types of researchers, whether they're early career, whether they're doing PhD, sometimes for postgraduate researchers. It can be a useful kind of introduction to the world of research and research publishing. And next slide. On the course, we often do some quite interesting things to do with collaborative work. Sometimes people like to share videos talking about their research. We try to create a sort of a social environment that people can learn from each other and collaborate. But mostly the course is very low bandwidth. As you can see from the right-hand side, it's very much text-based. It takes you through what you need to learn in a text-based format. Next slide. And we also have a community of facilitators on the course. Because we have thousands of people joining the course at the same time, we have a group of what we call guest facilitators who are in the forums answering questions. And there's also an opportunity for people that do the course to move up to become facilitators themselves. So young researchers who've completed the course and are confident in helping others can be promoted to facilitators the next time we actually run the course. Next slide. And then finally to say that the completion rate for our online courses is around 50%. So half of the people that actually start the course complete the course. And this is actually much higher than MOOCs generally are. Generally speaking, there's a 15% completion rate for most massive online open courses. So I think that shows not only that the courses are tailored to the audience, but also the researchers who join our courses are really driven and keen to make sure they make the most of the skills that we're trying to teach on the course. Shall I hand over back to you, Siân, now? Is this your bit?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
and
great.
I've also found a way to show myself, so so you can see me now. So Andy has told you about INASP's online courses within AuthorAID, but it's also good to just note that we have a range of other courses too that aren't specifically part of AuthorAID. They are though they have a lot of relevance to the same people. So we have a range of self-study tutorials in search strategies, which is one of the things that is really key at the early stage that Andy was talking about for helping to find the right research and how to look and understand the research available. Grant proposal writing. I know that every time we talk to researchers about challenges, one of the things that comes up is the challenge of funding and attracting funding for research. So we have a self-study tutorial that can help with that. Also one on critical thinking skills. And in the next week or so, we will be launching one, a self-study tutorial on online facilitation skills. So that's particularly for those people who have found themselves, especially in this current pandemic, having to do teaching online, maybe run webinars or conferences or even project meetings online where they haven't needed to do this before. And we've been hearing quite a lot that people have been suddenly needing to have skills that they didn't have before, which has been a real challenge. So all of those tutorials, like all the things that Andy said, these are all free to participants. If you go to our Moodle, moodle.inasp.info, you can see all these courses, and you can also sign up there to be alerted to any new taught courses, facilitated courses. So the facilitated courses happen at a particular point in time. The tutorials, you can just sign up whenever you like, and you can take as long as you like, and but you still get a certificate at the end, and they're free as well. So another thing that I want to mention, I briefly mentioned it at the start, about supporting the visibility of research published in away from the places that have the enormous large commercial publishers with big budgets. So you know, if you look at the journals that that you're aware of and that attract a lot of money, and you find them in lots of databases and whatever else, you will probably mainly hear about journals published by enormous publishers, large publishers, large, often commercial, usually in Europe and North America. But there are, as I'm sure people in this call are very well aware, many fantastic journals throughout the world. So the Journals Online platform project was developed to give a platform for journals within particular countries or regions. So it started with Africa Journals Online, and that is, and then Nepal Journals Online, Bangladesh Journals Online, Central American Journals Online. There's a suite of these. All of these were started in partnership with INASP and are all run independently in the regions that they're in now, but we can maintain a strong relationship with these journals, and particularly supporting editors with training in journal quality and in the various navigating the various international standards. And one of the ways that we do this, we started this with African Journals Online a few years ago. This is a ranking system for journals. So there's a deep assessment of the quality of publishing practices. I know there's lots of concerns about how do you know whether a journal does peer review, how do you know whether a journal has got an editorial board, how do you know whether the journals are relevant to your topic and whether they stick to the topic they say. So all of these kind of things are part of journals publishing practices and standards. And if you look at this website at the bottom, journalquality.info, there will be a long list of journals, and they will all have one of these 6 levels. And there was also an explanation of what those mean. But all of the journals that are included have had some basic level of checking that they can be included in one of these platforms. I just saw a question pop up. What area? It's all areas. If this is a question about the journals, they cover all research fields. So, as we're talking about understanding whether journals are appropriate for your research, I would just like to mention Think, Check, Submit. This was an initiative that was started that's across industry. So it's INASP is one of the partners, but there are lots of other partners that are publishing organizations, library organizations, sort of international organizations, and recognizing that people struggle to know how to tell sometimes if a journal is something that they can trust. So we came up with this checklist, and there's a similar checklist for publishers of books, basically to help people to go through and understand whether a journal is okay, whether it's something that you feel that you can trust, whether it's relevant, and whether you know what sort of thing it is. So I will be sharing on the, if you're interested in finding more about this, I thoroughly recommend it. This is of course also free. If you go and take a look at this website, thinkchecksubmit.org, then you can find out more, follow the checklist, and it's actually available in nearly 40 different languages, the checklist now. So that is the end of our formal talking bit, and we're now I'm now going to go and look through all the many questions and comments that have appeared while we've been talking. Please do check our websites. Those are our Twitter handles if you want to, the organizational Twitter handles if you want to follow us on Twitter. There will also be an opportunity, I think, in the after webinar survey to indicate if you'd like to hear from INASP, if you'd like us to send you some more information about all the things that we're talking about. But now we'd like to hand over to you all for some questions. And we'll first take a look at the chat, but also if you have, if you'd like to raise your hands. So there was a question, just this is the most a recent question, so I'll answer this first. Are there any plans for publishers to adopt the STAR system from JPPS, journalquality.info? That is an interesting question. At the moment, we are looking at ways to expand this beyond the journals that are on the journals online platforms. This is, as with many things, this requires attracting funding for it. So we would love it to be a more widely used and adopted standard and practice. It's very simple to use, and one of the benefits, particularly of it, is that it's not just here's your label and that's it, that's how you are. It's we then feed back to journal editors what they can do to improve their journals. So if there's journals that maybe could do with tidying up how the aims and scope of the journal is written about, for example, or if a journal could benefit from a more international peer review process or something. So journal editors, it's an ongoing process and a dialogue to help journals to improve their systems. Right. And we will hopefully give you more information. We will hopefully be able to tell you more next year as things evolve. What other questions do we have here? Andy, did you see any?
Yeah.
Oh.
I saw that somebody recognised themselves on one of our slides. Which is
I saw
nice.
that too.
Thank
you very much for sharing your picture for that.
We also have something on our online courses where we have a competition where people share pictures of themselves doing their research, and so we have a competition on that, and often that means that participants of our online courses appear on our presentation slides like this quite randomly. There are a couple of questions I'm just trying to catch up. So one person asked, how can I get a reviewer who helped me on my article, paper, manuscript? So I think it might be worth just mentioning AuthorAID mentoring again, and Siân, perhaps you can add this because you are actually an AuthorAID mentor. So the online mentoring system, which again is free to sign up, free to get mentoring. You can search for a mentor who can help you in different ways. So there are mentors on our website who are available to help with small or big tasks. Some go on to help with career mentoring or help you with proposals or PhD proposals. Some people are on there to help you with editing your paper or proofreading your paper or just sort of language skills. So you may well be able to get somebody to review your paper for you. So if you sign up on the AuthorAID website, look for a mentor. You can also filter by the kinds of skills that you're particularly looking for in a mentor. Siân, you've been an AuthorAID mentor yourself.
I have, yes, thank you, Andy. Yes, so I am an AuthorAID mentor. My research background is in organic chemistry, so I signed up. I mean, my chemistry is quite rusty now after many years of not doing it, but so what I've particularly helped mentees do is with language editing and also with structure of their language. Usually I've ended up coming back to maybe say, you might want to tie your findings with the things you said in your introduction. So if people have said a whole load of things, just basic, sometimes I think people, if they're unfamiliar with it, put an introduction of a very large number of references and just say this paper says this paper says this, but they don't, then when they actually present their research findings, they don't present how that relates to the things they shared earlier. Sometimes people have approached and said, I'm applying to do a PhD, would you take a look at my application? And so usually in those kind of situations, often a real common thing is to remind people to take a look at what they're actually required to do in the application process. If something says use no more than 4 pages to submit your application and you submit 20 pages, that's not going to be good. So quite often there's quite simple things that having another pair of eyes, which is what a mentor can do, and just say from my experience, this is the kind of thing you might want to try. And just as a plea on the behalf of mentors, if you would like a mentor, and please give them a bit of time, because sometimes people get in touch and say, I need to submit this later today, please help. And usually mentors are working full time doing something else. So my answer will almost always be no to that. What other questions do we have? How can one join to participate in these courses?
Yeah, I've just added a link. Basically, we have an online course going on at the moment, but it's just finished. So the next courses we're running it are next year. I think there's one in March, one in July. So the best thing to do is to sign up on the AuthorAID website for alerts, for news alerts, and we'll let you know. Or just always return to AuthorAID.info and find out when the next course is. Hopefully we will announce some dates very soon.
And you can sign up to receive news alerts from INASP and particularly from the AuthorAID course. So after this webinar, if afterwards in the survey you indicate you'd like to hear from us, we will share details of how you can sign up to the to updates from AuthorAID and from INASP. So if you sign up to those, then you will definitely hear when the next course is. And as I said previously, if you want to do any of the tutorials, you can go and do this as soon as this webinar is finished if you want. Just go to moodle.info.inasp.info. A few people have asked if the seminar materials from this webinar will be shared afterwards. Just to confirm, they will be. There will be a recording posted. Research for Life will have more details, but the recording will be posted and the slides will be posted. And if you would like, we will email you afterwards with more information about all these topics.
There's another question. So I've seen the question mentioned twice, and that's on plagiarism, and specifically plagiarism software. Is there any free plagiarism software? Now, my answer to that is usually that I don't think there is any reliable free plagiarism checking software. The only software that's worth using is Turnitin, and that's usually, I wouldn't personally recommend that you use plagiarism software for your own writing. The free plagiarism software you may have heard of, I don't think is very reliable. It doesn't have access to the databases that you need to cross-reference with the other literature. And I think it's much better to actually learn how to make sure that you cite other literature correctly. It's so to make sure you're writing correctly, you're citing literature, making your references correctly, and you're paraphrasing correctly. I don't think that plagiarism checkers really help you with this. So things like Authenticate and Turnitin are usually more helpful for journal editors to actually check if there's any plagiarism in your article. Siân, I don't know if you've got any different opinions on that.
Well, what I do, because I don't have any access to I haven't paid for any access to plagiarism things, but if I'm reading something and a sentence feels a bit funny, maybe feels like it doesn't fit with the rest of something, or maybe is written in a bit of a different style, I put it into Google, and there is a wealth of stuff on Google. If you put a sentence in, it's appeared in another paper, you may well find it, and then you can assess whether it's actually, this is when you're reading something, you can assess whether it is actually another version of the same thing or whether it is plagiarism. The other thing, a tip, I know that plagiarism can happen by accident if you are taking notes from a range of sources and putting them into a Word document. You know, you're making an introduction to a paper, you're pasting loads of things in with the idea that you'll capture them all in one place. My tip to avoid doing this is I use different color fonts. If I want to make sure that I have keep track of them, you make sure you keep a link to the source and use different color fonts, and only turn it into sort of black font when it's the final text that's actually written by me rather than by somebody else. Somebody has shared their screen. I don't know if you meant to, but it's unfortunately made the it's got no. it made the chat disappear. There's a good question here about how can universities promote their journals to have international appeal to attract publicity.
Good question.
Yeah, it's a good question. It doesn't have a quick answer. There is one. I mean, there's possibly one quick answer in that we have I will share in the chat when Andy is next talking. We have a manual for journal editors that's free on our website, and there is a whole section about promoting journals. So I mean, the whole manual is about, for example, getting your journal onto an online platform, and how to structure your online presence of a journal. But there's also a specific chapter about using social media for promotion, about things like having press releases or engaging with the media. Also some quite simple things like encouraging authors in your journal to also promote their work. I will share a link when it's, if Andy has more to say about that, I will share a link to the to that resource now.
Yeah, I guess I was going to say on promoting your own journals is that the best thing to do to raise the credibility of the journal is usually to try to get indexed in a credible, well-known index. And that can be very, very challenging, particularly for new journals, particularly for journals based in low and middle income countries, because to get included in places like the Web of Science or Scopus or PubMed can be very, very challenging. One recommendation I guess I would have was, if it is an open access journal, try to get that journal indexed in the directory of open access journals, because that can give that journal a lot of credibility. There are certain publishing practices that the directory of open access journals check for, and generally journals that are indexed on DOAJ are seen as credible and good and have good publishing quality. With regards, just one more thing with regards to plagiarism, it's something that is also included on our online course. We do talk about plagiarism. There is a section where we talk about the importance of understanding how correct paraphrasing works. So if you can understand how to paraphrase, and if you can understand how to reference and cite other work correctly, then I think you're already 99% there to avoiding plagiarism. That's one thing I'd say. But hopefully, if you get a chance to go on one of our online courses, you may be able to learn more. And somebody has posted some links in the chat. Nilam, who actually wrote one of our online modules, has posted some links in the chat to actually where you can learn more about preventing plagiarism in your research. So
We have
questions.
Yeah, there was a question here I just saw a moment ago. How can someone be successful in finding a mentor or collaborator from the platform? And is there any interest from INASP to facilitate face-to-face meetings of researchers sometime in the near future?
Well, it's going to be tricky for us to do face-to-face meetings in the near future, but that's a good question. How can you be successful in finding a mentor or collaborator? Now, we have an online platform where we allow you to find mentors and allow you to find collaborators, but quite often people struggle to make connections, and particularly mentees can find they struggle to connect with a mentor. And I think one of the main reasons for that is many mentees don't provide much information when they sign up. They don't provide much information when they introduce themselves. So quite often a mentor or a collaborator will just receive a very brief message saying, can I collaborate with you? Will you be my mentor? They don't provide any context about what they're working on, where they're from, what their interests are, what specific help they need. And I think many mentors find that frustrating. They have to kind of go back and get more information. So one tip I'd say, if you're signing up on any website really, or on any forum, try to provide as much information as possible on yourself, your motivations, what you're working on, what particular help you need, so that a potential mentor or potential collaborator can know exactly what they need to do, and they can see if they're, if they're on the same wavelength as you. That's one thing I would say. Sure.
We have. I'm sorry. I was replying to a chat about another question, so I missed that bit. But I'm not sure that I have anything particular. I think you just maybe need to give to try a few times sometimes about finding a mentor, but don't contact absolutely everybody, because sometimes people contact everybody who signed up to be a mentor, and then you discover that they've got 5 mentors, and that is a difficult. There are more people wanting mentors than there are mentors. So please. Oh yeah, and we now have somebody who would like to ask a question. I said, is it Sama? Please do ask your question.
I think somebody also has the hand up.
Yeah, somebody, Sama Ayoub, I'm not sure, I apologize for the pronunciation, asked to ask a question speaking. Please go ahead. Could I just remind, if it's possible, to keep your microphones off if you're not speaking. Very happy for people to speak, but if we end up, we've got lots of people on this call, so if we could try to avoid microphones on when we're not speaking.
Not sure if Sama's audio is working, but I did see that she'd asked a question earlier, which was how do you write the methods, conclusions, and I think she also mentioned introductions. I guess that's quite a big question, and that's something that we go through on the course. How the introduction, methods and conclusions, how to write those different sections and how they fit into the paper. So it's kind of a very big topic, which we probably don't have time to go into today. But I will say that the two most difficult sections of a paper, which is what our researchers tell us, are the introduction and the discussion. And if you look on our website, we've got 2 recent blog posts which talk about these 2 sections of a paper. So there's a blog post written a couple of months ago, how to write an introduction. and that often the introduction is the section of the paper which is accidentally plagiarizes other people accidentally, most commonly. So this is where people write their paper and they come to the introduction at the end because they're not sure how to write the introduction to the paper, and they're very tempted to copy and paste other people's work as a way of providing the context of their research. So you have to be very careful with the introduction. So go and have a look on the AuthorAID website. There's a blog post on how to write an introduction and a blog post on how to write the discussion section of the paper.
Just trying to find the links, and I can't find them at the moment, but I will share the overall link to the AuthorAID news section, and you can go and look and hopefully find them and find other things. So there's been a great series recently of stories from researchers, and we're always interested in people sharing their own stories and experiences.
Sorry, I've just.
So you probably saw the same good question as me.
Yes, go ahead, Siân.
The difference between language editing and proofreading. That's an interesting thing. It's a little bit blurry, actually. I would say that editing of any sort is a more substantial process than proofreading. Proofreading is checking for spelling mistakes and grammar, and perhaps breaking up long sentences or long paragraphs, just checking the sense of things. Language editing will be well, probably in the case of if somebody writing in English who doesn't speak English as a first language, that maybe checking that the way that the language is used is how the person who wrote things meant it to be used, and may involve some more discussion backwards and forwards to check this. And then of course there's more substantial just editing because something is structured wrongly and needs, or perhaps isn't structured very clearly. Something maybe is in the wrong place or doesn't make sense. Maybe there's too much information about one thing, too little information about another thing. Often it's not until you really see something that you know quite what kind of editing or proofreading is required. I don't know if anybody else has any direct experiences who'd like to chip in. I wondered, Neelam, do you want to say anything about this? Putting you on the spot here, sorry.
Hello. Hello, I hope you can hear me. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I would agree with you. I think the language editing is more about what point are you trying to make? And so on the course, what we do at the very beginning is say, well, what points are you trying to make? And then you can write around that. And completely agree with you, Siân. The kind of proof editing, the proofreading is around the grammar, the style, and in particular, specific to a journal article, does it meet the guidelines of that particular journal? So there's a lot of detail in proof editing, but they are two different things. So the language style and language editing, is it clear through your writing the points you're trying to make? So that's how I would define it. I don't know if anyone else wants to share.
Yeah,
that's good. Thank you.
Thank you, Nila. There's another question that comes in that's come a couple of times, and it's about looking for high impact journals. Well, there's one question which Victor has asked is, do you have a list of free, I think you may have just asked it to me, I'm not sure, but it's similar to another question that's been asked. Do you have a list of free publishing journals with high impact factor? Now, there are two elements in here. So first of all, looking for a list of journals which don't charge a fee. And I think this goes back to the poll that we did earlier. There's lots of concerns about paying to publish. And I think it's important to break down the different types of journals and different types of business models that are out there for academic journals. And generally speaking, most academic journals don't charge a fee for you to publish as an author. I mean, we can talk more about this, but most journals don't charge you a fee to publish your paper unless they are particular well-established open access journal, usually a high impact open access journal, which may charge you an article processing charge. I've provided a couple of links in the chat box to places I think you might want to look if you want to look for credible or high impact journals, particularly if you're looking for journals, which open access journals, which don't charge a fee. I would go to the directory of open access journals. Siân, do you want to?
Yeah, I was just going to add that if there is a journal that you want to apply for that is a that does have a fee for paying to publish, and that you've already checked is credible, because that is something that we always have to do, not just about open access journals, but about all journals. You can sometimes apply for a waiver. That is to say, I'm from a country that, or an institution, or I'm in this situation that means that I can't pay this. Some of these prices are very, very high. So you can apply for a waiver. Often journal websites don't make that process very clear. So you may actually need to email somebody rather than just, it's often more complicated than just ticking a box and saying, I'd like a waiver, please, and then giving you one. So you may actually have to email, but it's always worth asking. And we find that actually a surprisingly large number of people who are eligible to have waivers don't actually apply for them. And we suspect part of that is not knowing where they're available. So do also ask other researchers if they have advice on this. Unfortunately, we're nearly out of time. So please do read through all the things in the chat. We will be contacting you afterwards if you would like us to. So you can also ask questions directly, take a look at our websites and the Twitter. And I'd just like to thank Research for Life for hosting us and the chance to chat with everybody today. This has been great. We have again the Sama asking to open a microphone. Do you want to try again, because it didn't work earlier?
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I can do. Thank you. Okay. Good morning. My question is, firstly, before asking my question, I'd like to say thank you for all. Number two, I'd like to thank AuthorAID and INASP for their great courses. Actually, I've participated in one. It was great. So great, actually. I participated in the previous research writing in science. It was great, but I actually needed a specific course talking about exactly how to write a paper, like dividing the paper into sections, for example, introduction, how to write the introduction, step for writing introductions, and how to start it, how to write the main body of the introduction, and then how to finish my introduction, then how to write your method, when I use charts, when I use figures, and etc. Like for the beginners. For the so junior beginners, you understand me, there is a section actually, there is a material from some I don't know, chemistry doctor or something. It was divided also like a paper for introduction. I wish that you can remember this. It was great, but I needed more information, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you got my point.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one thing that our course isn't able to do, because that's such a, actually learning to do every single part of a paper.
Right, yeah,
it's quite a lot of, quite a lot of, and it can really depend on the discipline as well. So it's not something that we cover in great depth.
Is it difficult?
But we do provide link in our latest course.
Is it difficult to have a separate, for example, course for the
in one of the latest modules we've written, we provide links to other websites. There are lots of other websites out there which provide guidance on how to.
Okay, I'm a medical actually, and I needed such links. for the writing in medical field?
In medical, well,
Yeah.
yeah, perhaps you want to join our discussion forum. If you go to our website and we have a discussion group on Google Groups, and perhaps if you go onto our Google Groups group, ask your question on there, we can signpost you to some particular resources, because I know there are some out there. Also check the resources page on AuthorAID. I think there are some resources that we provide links to in there as well. But you're right, it's a very critical question, which for many people we can't provide the really in-depth,
actually
hands-on
it's very
resources.
difficult for everyone to start writing as they are junior and they need it more.
Nilam's just put a link in the chat box which might be helpful.
Okay, thanks a lot for the one who shared. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the question. And we are unfortunately out of time. So thank you all for joining. Thank you for Research for Life for hosting. And should I just hand back to Edith for a moment to...
Yeah, thank you, Sean, and thank you, Andy, for this excellent presentation. So as I told, you will receive the webinar recordings and all the presentation and a link to the survey after the link. And just one thing before I close, that we will have another webinar on Research for Life user journeys on end of November. So please follow us on our website and on the Research for Life website and Facebook or Twitter account. So thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank
Goodbye.
you.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.